I'm back and I'm reviewing the first volume of Transformers. This is part of the Energon universe that started with Void Rivals. I'm hoping to read Duke and Cobra Commander, which are the next two trade paperbacks in the Energon universe. It's basically taking Transformers and G.I. Joe and creating a very unified universe out of them. Which Transformers and G.I. Joe, even since the days when Marvel first published their comic book adventures, have always been intertwined, but this is basically a reboot of the story. Kind of lost track with the actual story of Transformers over the years. I didn't really follow any of IDW, and that Transformers run lasted for a very long time. So it always felt kind of impenetrable to me. So it was fun to kind of get on the ground floor and start reading the adventures of these transforming robots that I loved so much as a kid. Presentation wise, these books from Skybound and Image, who are doing these now, are really fantastic. I really love the cover stock they use. This has some fantastic clear coloring, like really well done, not overly rendered coloring that I just really love. I just show you a random page, which brings me to the other part of the presentation in a comic book, which is the art. And this art is by the writer Daniel Warren Johnston. I love it. I really love this look for Transformers in particular. It reminds me a little bit of the artwork in the Generation 2 comic book, which I read when I was a kid and really enjoyed. One thing that can happen a lot with Transformers is that artists try to capture so much detail, which is cool. It's a cool look, but it can kind of feel a little inert. This is very expressive and moody at times. I really love the ink work. To me, Daniel Warren Johnston and Transformers is such a perfect match. I just hope they keep him on for as long as possible as an artist. So let's talk characters. One of the things I think that the movies really did a disservice to for Transformers is in terms of character. If you were anybody but Optimus Prime and Bumblebee, I feel like you didn't really get much in the way of character. It was cool the way that they did this because not only do we get reintroduced to the Transformers like Ratchet and Optimus Prime, and in this comic book, I would say Optimus Prime probably still gets the most characterization. But the nice thing about it is they interweave his story with the story of Spike and Sparky Witwicky, which are two very well known characters who come from the original cartoon and the comic run in a way. They take these human characters and really kind of provide a sort of sounding board almost for the story of the Transformers because essentially, I mean, Transformers, it's a comic book about toys. Yes, there's that level, but obviously people aren't writing that, just that. But the Transformers, the take on it here, and I've seen it done to certain extents elsewhere too, is it's really a story about a war. It's a story about a people who have been torn apart by a war that has gone on for centuries. So in this, they make Sparky, and I keep saying it weird because his name was Sparkplug in Generation One, and I don't know if Sparky is better. I don't know. It seems sort of infantile for this like kind of rugged, man who works at the power plant. But anyway, it's Sparky. So Sparky was in the war. He's lost one of his sons, Jimmy, recently, and he is in a bad place. He is drowning his sorrows with alcohol. He doesn't have a great relationship with his remaining son, Spike. So it's interesting to see his kind of old soldier persona interspersed with Optimus Primes, and they do this in a very intentional way. I think that's a really cool take, honestly, on Transformers, really emphasizing the cost of war, the toll war takes. One thing that's kind of cool about this that I really kind of appreciated is Bumblebee is pretty much absent for this entire volume, at least. And he's there, but he's just not repaired yet because they all crash landed like in the original Generation One series. Look, I adore Bumblebee. He was like one of my favorite characters in Generation One, but he kind of like became the Elmo of Transformers, like where it was just like, okay, do we have to always make it about Bumblebee? Like I'm kind of just over Bumblebee. Like he's a little overexposed, sadly, in my eyes. So it was nice to kind of give him a little rest, at least for one volume, and have someone like Cliffjumper, who was usually kind of, shunted to the side as like, oh, there's Red Bumblebee, but to give that character a little more of a highlight. Talking about prose and writing style, I think that Daniel Warren Johnston does a really good job sort of introducing the concept of Transformers, keeping it fresh for people who've maybe read multiple versions of these characters by now, but also not just assuming that everyone is intimately familiar with the different characters. I think this would work if you were a new Transformers fan or not, just to pick this up. Overall, I think the dialogue's really good. I really love the relationship between Spike and his dad, Sparky. I hate saying that name so bad. Sorry. I'm gonna get over it. It's just it's in my head one way, and I'm rebelling against it. But I can move on. It's fine. Things change. Anyway, Sparky, and that's probably just short for Spark Plug. I mean, I'm sure. Anyway, I just think it sounds weird. Anyway, so the relationship between Sparky and his son Spike is nicely done. That really carries me through the action scenes, which are really great. Actually, there's some really clever action scenes here. The Transformers kind of have a little bit of a boost because you can kind of have sort of graphic action scenes, but it's fine because it's Transformers and they're robots. Like if you were to we were to do this with people, it would be horrific. But yeah, they can kind of get down and dirty and busted up, and there's just some really cool kind of like crunchy robot on robot action in this book. Now, on the other end of the dialogue, some of the Decepticons dialogue, which for Starscream, it makes sense. But I feel like every Decepticon was kind of yelling like, die, scum, Autobot, swine. It just felt like a little bit too much just yelling battle talk, except for Soundwave, who, if you're not familiar, he's the one that talks like this and talks like a robot and he has a filter. So other than him, everyone kind of sounds a little bit the same. So really only Soundwave and Starscream are given much in the way of characterization here. So that's, it wasn't great. But there's still a lot to like. For a Transformers comic book, I thought it was a good mix. Overall, this is a very short book. It goes by very quickly. It's short to begin with, but as with modern comics, most modern comics, because there is so much art and there's a lot of focus on the art, the pages just kind of fly by. And I actually kind of had to stop myself from reading the story and just sort of sit and appreciate the artwork now and again because I do really love the artwork in this. My comic book reading has been way down, so it's kind of nice just to sort of step back into it with these and just sort of get back into the flow. And I'm really having a good time. So if you are a fan of Transformers, just casually like myself, or if you're a mega fan who maybe lapsed or hasn't been around to it, I think it's worth checking it out. I really enjoyed it.